Good evening and thanks very much for being with us. We begin tonight with COVID-19. An elementary school in Hymers and a long-term care home in Thunder Bay have been identified as the sites of two recent cases. But so far, there has been no confirmed spread of the virus at those locations. An outbreak was declared today at Southbridge Roseview on Shunia Street after one staff member tested positive for the virus. The home has locked down its heritage unit with 24 residents being confined to their rooms for the time being. Surveillance swabbing is ongoing. And at this point, no residents of the home have tested positive and no other staff members have identified as having symptoms. Meanwhile, a person associated with Whitefish Valley School has tested positive. Lakehead Board officials say it is not a student. The health unit has investigated possible exposures and determined the students and staff are not considered to be at an elevated risk at this time. All in-person classes will continue as the board and the health unit monitor the situation over the next 2 weeks. And today, 3 new cases of COVID-19 were announced by the health unit, including the first hospitalized individual since Thunder Bay Regional closed its COVID unit back in July. Corey Nordstrom has that update and more from the hospital's COVID-19 incident manager.
Dr. Stuart Kennedy is remaining calm as the active number of COVID-19 cases rises to 52 in Thunder Bay and the surrounding area, with 1 patient now being hospitalized. Kennedy says having a COVID patient in the regional hospital, combined with the recent surge in cases, should serve as a wake-up call to locals to follow public health guidelines.
I think this is an awareness, and it's just a check that we have to be a bit more prudent. Am I overly concerned at this point in time? No, because we've been taking good care of ourselves and the community is responsive for each other. So I'm not overly concerned at this time.
Kennedy says the hospitalized patient remains in stable condition, and because there is just a single case in the hospital, they can utilize their ventilated rooms for now. 29 of the latest positive cases were related to pickleball, a sport played mainly by seniors, and provincial COVID data confirms that many of the recent local cases involve men and women in their 60s. So far, all other cases are isolating at home, but if things get worse, Kennedy says it only takes a day to set up their COVID-19 unit.
If we get to over 6 COVID-19 patients in the hospital, then we consider opening up the COVID-19 unit. But right now, we're well prepared to deal with the influx of a small number of COVID-19 patients.
Kennedy deems the surge in COVID-19 to be the result of a super spreader in the community. At this point, the hospital will continue to work on addressing the surgery backlog, and there are no plans to cancel surgeries or impose further restrictions at the hospital.
With the data we've received, there is more morbidity, which is illness. There's more mortality because of the prolonged wait lists than there is with COVID-19. So we need to take care of the health of the population and not being reduced services unless we get so overwhelmed we can't deliver the service.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
With COVID cases on the rise in Thunder Bay, the chief of Neskantaga First Nation is asking for the hotel where his evacuated residents are staying to be closed off to anyone not from their community. The Victoria Inn on Arthur Street has been housing more than 200 Neskantaga residents for almost a month since they were evacuated from their community due to unsafe drinking water. Chief Chris Munoz recently tweeted that he would like the Victoria Inn to be exclusively just for his members.
We want to do that so we can create a bubble and safety and that just before we go home, if and when we go home, that we'll have a better chance of not taking the COVID home.
Munoz sent a letter to Indigenous Services Canada to look into the matter, and he was informed that the hotel is considering it. Officials from the Victoria Inn declined to comment. Munoz says the return date to Neskantaga is still undetermined due to a recent COVID case with a contractor in the community. And it appears some parts of the province could soon be placed under even tighter pandemic restrictions. Premier Ford has been facing increasing calls for steps to control the growth of virus as numbers continue to mount in hotspots such as Toronto. And today, the Premier indicated changes are on the way.
The situation is extremely serious. Right now, we're staring down the barrel of another lockdown in these regions. Last week, I asked the Chief Medical Officer of Health to come back with his recommendations on what we need to do to flatten the curve on the second wave. We expect new measures to be discussed at Cabinet and announced in the coming days.
Now, along with Toronto, nearby Peel and York regions are also expected to be affected by the new restrictions, and the province has decided an extended winter school break is not needed after the Christmas holidays. Education Minister Stephen Lecce said yesterday that an extended break or a period of online learning in early January was under consideration, but Lecce says after consulting with medical officials, he believes the COVID-19 protocols in schools are enough to keep kids safe. And the Thunder Bay Country Market has closed its dining rooms effectively immediately following the spike in cases over the past few days. The decision was made out of caution to ensure a safe and successful holiday season for the over 80 vendors at the market on the CLE grounds. The closing of the dining rooms on both the upper and lower levels of the market was allowed for vendors to be further spread out and gives customers more space to roam the building. The market already had COVID prevention measures in place, including plexiglass shields, sanitizing stations, and limits on the number of patrons inside at one time. Heading into the busy holiday season, manager Annette Moorer insists the market is as safe as possible. Guests were not required to wear masks while eating in the dining rooms before the closure, which led to some uneasy feelings among vendors and customers.
Then that creates a higher risk for the rest of the customers and vendors and different people that attend the market. What we want to try to do is minimize the risk as much as possible so that we can stay operating as long as possible in order to allow all the businesses that operate out of the market to have a successful Christmas retail period as we can.
Meanwhile, Thunder Bay's 3 A&W restaurants have also decided to close their dining areas as of yesterday. Franchise officials say the move was made to protect both customers and staff. Each store is still open for takeout, drive-through, and delivery orders. And the inquest into the underground death of a man at Barrick Gold's Hemlo mine near Marathon continued today. In November of 2017, 59-year-old Eloy Gutierrez was 6 months away from retirement when he was killed after being struck by a scoop tram underground. On day 3 of the inquest, the general manager of Barrick Gold took the witness stand, answering questions about the incident and highlighting the safety improvements that the mine has undergone in the 3 years since. The inquest will wrap up tomorrow with closing statements from the parties involved. The jury will then deliberate and examine the circumstances of what took place and then make recommendations aimed at preventing similar deaths. Thunder Bay Police have made a total of 7 arrests following a pair of drug busts on Tuesday. The first 3 came following the execution of a search warrant at a South Algoma Street home where crack cocaine, drug paraphernalia, and over $3,000 in cash was seized. A city man and 2 Southern Ontario residents are all facing trafficking charges. The second set of arrests were made following a raid on a 2nd Street home that netted police cocaine, crack cocaine, and over $12,000 in cash. A woman and 2 Thunder Bay area men, along with a Toronto resident, have also been charged with trafficking. And the new owner of the Finnish Labour Temple says he feels badly that a number of theatrical artifacts were thrown away rather than donated to the Thunder Bay Museum or a local theater group. But Brad McKinnon insists he didn't know anyone wanted any of the items that has been left inside the historic building. These pictures taken yesterday showing some old theater props thrown into dumpsters on the property have sparked outrage online. Those dumpsters have since been emptied. Today, the Thunder Bay Museum issued a media release expressing disappointment that there wasn't an opportunity to check out the items before their disposal. Executive Director Scott Bradley says the museum provided the liquidator with a list of items it was interested in back in July. But McKinnon says he thought all of the items had been divvied up prior to him taking ownership of the building back on November 6th.
My understanding that was being divvied out and given to the right places back in October. So when I took over the building on November 6th, I had assumed that whatever was left behind was not wanted by any group.
We were interested in some of the theatrical items related to the international workers of the world, related to labor movements, theatrical backdrops, and other props from the theater there, as well as items related to the Finnish Labour Temple itself, including some memorabilia and artwork and things like that, that I think would have really been a good way to tell the story of the finished labor temple on an ongoing basis, and just to be able to preserve those items for the community in perpetuity.
Bradley says the museum didn't aggressively pursue the items out of respect for the Finlandia Association and the Finnish community, but he believed, based on public statements from former board members, that he was going to be contacted when the time was right to collect the artifacts. Bradley adds that while he's disappointed, he doesn't think there was any malicious intent and that it was simply a miscommunication that led to the items being thrown away. And during the holiday season, we typically see the traffic at shopping malls increase as people, of course, search for those perfect gifts. However, this year, the shopping trends may be slightly different. With a recent spike in local COVID cases, Inner City Shopping Center has seen some fluctuations in foot traffic. Kayla Karim has details.
The recent spike in COVID-19 cases in the Thunder Bay area has put all the more pressure on shoppers to complete their Christmas shopping in case shopping malls are impacted by potential lockdowns in the days ahead. Many store owners and employees at ISC tell us they've noticed the gradual increase in foot traffic with a little over a month left until Christmas Day. The manager of the Northwest store at the mall, Bryson DeRose, says he's noticed the holiday shopping frenzy already.
COVID is having an impact. People do want to get in as soon as possible because there's a little bit of uncertainty in the air. Nobody knows what's going to happen, so people want to get it done as soon as possible. I'm concerned about the mall being closed. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. Everybody's nervous, and all we can do is be as careful as possible.
Meanwhile, Showcase Intercity had a steady year despite the pandemic. The store hadn't closed when the worst of the pandemic hit, so employee Sky Marino says she and other employees are not too panicked about a potential mall lockdown.
We're not we're not overly worried about it. We're kind of just taking it day by day. We are ready for, if something does happen, we all have a plan of what's going to happen. We didn't close down last time, so we're not sure if we'd close down again, but we'll just take the same precautions as last time, if not more.
One of the employees at Bay Meats says she's noticed the mall is one of the few places that older people can get out for the day, and as a result, the number of daytime patrons has increased as the weather's gotten colder. She says the mentality for everyone preparing for the holidays is the same.
So that's a thought. Everybody's thinking, well, I'm going to start slow and do a little bit and get it done ahead of time before the rush, because they might close before Christmas. We don't know.
Research from ISC shows shoppers have been taking advantage of the early Black Friday sales, resulting in the mall extending its holiday hours beginning Thursday to offer more flexibility. General Manager Stacey Ball says that they are working with the stores to ensure social distancing as well as following all of the safety guidelines. Kayla Karim, TBT News.
Brittany Ramsey, a massive enthusiast of Black Friday shopping and deals, cyber